This week on Who Deserves to Be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we deal with the controversy about whether the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is quote-unquote woke. Time to touch a third rail of music. We're close to the date where the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame announces their list for who they're considering for the upcoming class. Every year, especially lately, there's a lot of controversy about it. Seriously, no Iron Maiden or Soundgarden? The hell is wrong with the Hall? Anyway, the reason why I'm mentioning all of this is because they haven't even announced who they're thinking about yet, and there's already outrage online from a bunch of people about the Hall being, quote, too diverse in their opinion, and accusing the Hall of being, my favorite word of the last few years, woke. I'll get to that word later, but I will state for the record that I am a moderate independent. I am not a Democrat, not a Republican, I'm not far left liberal, and I'm not a far right conservative. So there you go. First off, may I say that I get where some of you people are coming from. After all, this is usually where I point out the artists who should already be in the Hall but aren't yet, and a lot of them are older rock acts. Let's start, however, with the criteria for actually getting into the Hall, which states that the artists who get in are the ones whose, and I'm quoting now, originality, impact, and influence have in their own way changed the course of rock music. End quote. That doesn't mean that strictly rock acts get into the Hall. In fact, the first class inducted wasn't all rock and roll. There were blues artists and Motown and R&B artists. Every type of music has either influenced rock music or rock music has influenced it. When the Hall first started, it was accused of being run by a few non-musicians whose tastes in music were strictly old-school rock and roll from the 50s and 60s, with maybe a little R&B thrown in just for good measure. That has changed in the last decade or so, as the Hall has changed leadership and has decided to let other people have a say in who gets inducted. That also means that more diverse music, like country music and hip-hop, is beginning to get in, and that's actually a good thing, not a bad thing like some people think. The Hall needed to get with reality and realize that music is not strictly a bunch of hard categories. White people don't just make hard rock, and black people don't just make R&B and soul music. Sometimes rock acts even do things like disco, like the Rolling Stones did when they released Miss You, or what Kiss did releasing I Was Made for Loving You, both of them being straight-up disco songs with guitars in them. Even everyone's favorite machine gun shooting rocker Kid Rock made his celebrity by being a rapper, just in case you forgot about that. Add to this the fact that strictly rock acts are getting less and less because we're going through a period right now, especially over the last decade or so, for better or for worse, where rock music has gone through what feels like an underground movement right now. I won't say it's dead because something usually bubbles up to the surface. However, as I pointed out a couple episodes on the Music Halls of Fame podcast, when I read the list of artists who will be eligible for the Hall for the first time next year, quality eligible rock acts are beginning to become few and far between. That means that the Hall needed to start including other genres that had either influenced or have been influenced by rock music. Otherwise, the induction ceremony would end up being held every 4 or 5 years at a local Cleveland diner. Also, it's nice that they finally realized that women do rock as well, and rock hard, I might add, and have begun to put more women into the Hall. Although, would it kill them to put the Runaways in? I'm just saying. Now, there are some people who don't like that reality, much like they don't like any reality that hasn't been spoon-fed to them by 4chan and Fox News. They would rather pretend that only white people should be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because in their eyes, the Hall should only be for rock and roll is white. Well, it's not. Sorry, kids. As I have stated numerous times on the Music Halls of Fame podcast, rock and roll was taken from country music and especially blues music. In fact, when rock and roll was first done, it was by black artists like Little Richard, Chuck Berry, and Fats Domino, and Ma Mabley, you might add. Radio disc jockeys, especially in the Jim Crow South, absolutely refused to play rock and roll, calling it the N-word music. Quite literally, and no, I'm not going to say what the N is. You can figure that out. Of course, it was easier to digest once the music was actually stolen from black artists and given to white artists like Pat Boone to sing, and then people started saying that the music was white music and locked black artists out of all the money that was being made. It's not the first genre to do that, by the way. Jazz did it almost 100 years ago. And more importantly, recently I should say, you could say that hip-hop has started doing it. Definitely EDM has done it since house and techno music was started in the underground clubs in Chicago, New York, and Detroit by black artists, Latinos, and gay people, and then got mixed up with the drug culture overseas in Amsterdam and especially in England, and has now become something where you could probably count on your fingers the number of black DJs who are very successful. Let's see here. Afrojack, Honey Dijon, Carl Cox, Todd Terry, Black Coffee, and that's about it. Even the phrase rock and roll was stolen because it was originally black slang for sex. Now, the far right has stolen the word woke, which was black slang for being enlightened, and has turned the word into a catch-all phrase to mean, I guess, owning the libs? Seriously, just stop using the word woke, please. Please stop using the word. None of you really know what it means, especially you politicians who always stumble when someone asks you to actually define the word woke. Also, I'm pretty sure that what I just said will now get me banned in Florida, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and some other states for being, quote, critical race theory, end quote. But it isn't. It's just the truth. Handle it, people. Sorry if I hurt the kids. So, for those of you who are complaining that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is too diverse and not, quote, white enough, end quote, get over it or stay mad. Music is for everybody, and every genre is for everybody, no matter what your color is, no matter who you love, or what gender you are. Your kids understand that. Check out their playlists sometimes. They listen to every genre, even classical music. And it's high time some of you adults got to the program as well, especially the over 50 crowd. Seriously, though, no Iron Maiden or Soundgarden? The hell is wrong with the hall?